All right, we have a special guest, Anthony Raposa, and you have been covering the Redskins every day here at training camp. And talk about that. Talk, the feeling down here at training camp.
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to be out here to be in the thick of things. I think it's important for fans to get that perspective of someone that is, here seeing things as they happen live and unfolding. I would describe it as like boring, but it's a good boring. It's not like a TMZ drama like it's been for the past couple years. Let's say. I think these guys are determined, and I think that they are focused, and I think that you really see that. I said this earlier on Twitter as well. I think I haven't seen this team in a while have this much camaraderie. It really feels like they're together and they're all on the same page with the mission, which is good because it's been a little while since it's been like that. Just starting with impact players, I think you have to go with Rashad Breeland. He's my #1 MVP of training camp so far. He's had an interception literally pretty much every day that he's been out here, which is crazy to think about because that's all with the ones.
Yeah.
And he's playing against a very, very strong offense. And that's actually what a lot of people consider the strength of the Redskins is their offense. So I think that really shows a lot, especially when all the spotlight's been on Josh Norman. Like Josh Norman's having a good camp himself, like I said, despite the videos and things that we're seeing. On the offensive side of the ball, you got to go with Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson looks like a new man. A lot of that has to do with fatherhood. He's a new dad, but he's focused. It's a contract year, and he's another guy that I think is gonna put up big numbers. The younger guys, I'm really impressed with Sua Cravens. I like his ability to play different positions, switching between linebacker and safety.
And you had mentioned that they brought him in as a linebacker, but there's more to that, right?
Right. So he was drafted as a safety.
Okay.
But they're bringing him in, wanting him to know different positions because he's probably going to float. It's likely that he's going to be a floater. He's going to try a few different things out. So it's important for him to understand different positions and versatility. Like one thing with the Redskins defense is versatility is very, very important, and Sua Cravens fits that mold. So when we're talking about young guys, I think the spotlight has to be on Sua Cravens.
All right, and let's talk about certain units. You were mentioning to me how many running backs you thought they might keep and why.
I'm going with 3 running backs.
Okay.
Matt Jones is a given. Chris Thompson has had the best training camp of all the running backs, though. And Chris Thompson is a guy that I think has really fallen under the radar, and a lot of people forget about him. But he's gonna get a lot of playing time this year, especially in the passing game. He is the third down back, so he's gonna get opportunities. I personally have Keith Marshall, the running back out of Georgia. He's a rookie, as that third guy. He had the fastest 40 time of any running back at the combine, and he's a guy that has breakaway speed. Now, the concern is a lot of people are worried about his health. So when we start seeing preseason games and seeing him get hit, I think that's when we'll get more of an idea if he's ready. There's a lot of people out here that are really high on Rob Kelly, who's an undrafted free agent out of Tulane. And that's another guy who could get looks and could fill that spot. But me personally, I have Keith Marshall filling that third role.
Let's talk about the tight end position. You discussed that earlier. And you have actually Davis as the second tight end.
Right. Davis is more of a natural #2 tight end for me over Niles Paul. And the reason that I'm saying that is I think Niles Paul is going to get a lot of H-back time this year. He could play some fullback. Now, the Redskins never really use a lot of fullbacks, which is why they let go of Darrell Young. But Niles Paul could be more of a slash where he's doing a couple different things. As in Vernon Davis is going to come in on a lot of run blocking plays because he's one of the best run blocking tight ends in the NFL. So I think we'll see a lot of him in there. So just more natural #2 tight end. I have Vernon Davis ahead of him on the chart, but that doesn't mean that both will be on the field at the same time.
All right, and let's talk about the offensive line, the strength of that offensive line.
Right. Yeah, the offensive line is good on the bookends. Like, we know that for sure. Obviously, Trent Williams is top 2 left tackle in the league. Morgan Moses last year could have went to the Pro Bowl.
Yes.
And this year he's looking like he's not slowing down at all. He's really, really impressed me a lot. So the bookends are good.
Are there?
Obviously, we know we have in Brandon Scherf at right guard. Now, outside of that, it's a little hazy. Like the left guard, we're not too sure if Spencer Long is going to stay there or Sean Laval is going to stay there. I have Sean Laval taking that spot. I think he fits more natural. He's a smart player, but again, health is going to be key in that area. Now, in the center position, we have Corey Lichtensteiger. He's a vet. He's smart. He definitely stands out in the fact that he uses his knowledge to make different adjustments before the snap. And I think that's where he has a bit of an advantage compared to some guys is he does have that. But those are the 2 areas where there still is a little bit of haze there. But outside of that, the Redskins are definitely, it is a strong unit.
All right, and the wide receivers, of course, we got pretty much a lot of depth there, right?
Oh yeah, the receivers. There's a lot of guys out here. The Redskins
Yeah.
brought in a lot of guys for camp to try the positions. You know what you're getting in Deshaun Jackson. You know what you're getting in Pierre Garçon. Josh Doxson hasn't seen the field just yet because of the various injuries that he's had with his Achilles. And I think he'll get there. I think a lot of people are worried that it's going to be a lot longer than it is. I think this is precautionary. You got to think he has the Achilles injury. Junior Glett had the Achilles injury, and look what happened there. So it's the same injury. I think they're just taking a smart approach to it. On the other side of that, you got Jamison Crowder. And Jamison Crowder is a guy that's going to get his targets, and he's a guy that really impressed last year. So when you really look at what they have a very, very talented unit, almost where like Kirk Cousins has too many people to get the ball to. So that'll be interesting to see how that
And I was going to ask you about Kirk Cousins. He looks pretty confident out here.
Yeah, and I think he's trying to fit that mold of what a franchise quarterback should be, the mentality of that. I think he's embracing that. I think this is the first time in his career where he is that guy. He's not looking over his shoulder to the person that's behind him. He doesn't have, that level of, it's good to have competition to where it builds you, but it shouldn't be a distraction. You shouldn't have in the back of your mind, well, every interception that I throw, someone's going to turn around and say, well, your backup wouldn't do that and whatnot. And it's especially with like the fans, it's been a big thing with the fans between RG3 and Kirk Cousins for years now, and it's something that keeps going back and forth. But overall, the confidence in Kirk Cousins that you can see is he wants to be the guy, and he just looks determined. He's all business. That's not to say he's perfect. He still has some areas that he needs to work on, but the gap between QB1 and QB2 is very large, very large.
All right, and one thing we didn't talk about on defense is David Bruton. Talk about him. He seems to be really solid out there.
Bruton is a very underrated signing when it comes to what the Redskins did this offseason. He was a special teams captain for the Broncos, and across the league, a lot of people actually consider him as one of the best special teams players in the league. He has really big size, and he's fitting in naturally at the safety position outside of D'Angelo Hall. So right now, he's my favorite to fill that role. I think he's an underrated talent that I think will get looks. Now, the safety position has a lot of depth to it as well. You got Will Blackman and Dookie Inacho. So I think that should feel good knowing that if an injury comes, that there's enough depth there to where I feel like they won't necessarily miss as big of a beat as they had in the past.
And so overall, what's your impression of this team? Will they go back to being the title holder in the NFC East?
The schedule this year is tough. The schedule this year is pretty tough. They're only playing a few teams that had a losing record. The Cleveland Browns come to mind. Outside of that, everyone is a competitor. Obviously, things change year to year in the NFL, but I like this squad better than I liked last year's squad. I can say that much, especially on the defense. I think they have a lot more. And on paper, they look good, but it's important to see that when the games actually count. And once the games actually count, then that'll, we'll obviously have a better idea. So it's really hard to gauge. Like I said, I like the roster this year better than I liked last year's roster, but the schedule is harder this year. So I think once we see that and get into a rhythm from the offense and seeing if the secondary what they do, I'll just say this: I think they'll be fine.
All right, so no predictions at this point, huh?
Yeah, I don't like to do win-loss record predictions just because of the fact that it's the NFL and anything can happen, and stuff like that is completely out of my control. And at that point, anyone who gives a number is just completely guessing.
All right.
So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of guessing.
And we know that you're not guessing. You know your stuff. And welcome to the Sideline Report,
Hey,
man.
I appreciate that.
All right, we'll be seeing you throughout the season.
Absolutely, for
All
sure.
right.